A wonderful morning to everyone who has joined today. From the ManageEngine family, we would like to extend a warm welcome and sincere thanks to all our customers, partners, and users who are interested in our solutions. Endpoint management and security is one of the main focus areas of ManageEngine. So let me introduce myself. My name is Jeffrey Nathan, and I'm a product including Desktop Central. I am a seasoned technical support engineer assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. In today's webinar, we will focus on endpoint management solutions, which has different product portfolios under management and security. During today's session, we will be discussing about the Desktop Central suite, which has management and security capabilities. As you all know, the whole world is affected by COVID-19, and as an organization, we have all moved to a work from home scenario, and most of you would have already moved. So we do have to take individual responsibilities in these tough times to ensure that we stay safe and also keep those around us safe. This can prove to be quite a challenging task for an IT admin who will need to remotely manage all their machines. So let's take the example of John, our IT admin. So usually we take an example of John having to manage 10,000 endpoints across his organization's different remote offices. But due to the COVID pandemic, the users have all been moved to a work from home scenario. So he is now faced by three types of users that he has to manage. So number one would be regular VPN users. So they have always been connected over VPN and there are existing policies in place to manage them. Then there are newly provided users who have been setting up VPN as a first time setup for them, and they are moving to a work from home setup for the first time. I assume most organizations would be falling under this category, where they are used to working in a traditional office environment and have now moved to a remote setup. And number three is a cloud or internet-based workforce, where all of the infrastructure is hosted in the cloud and the users connect directly over the internet. Now, John and his IT team are responsible for managing the corporate endpoints at the office and the work from home machines. And as I talked earlier, the users connect over VPN or they connect directly over internet. Now, the VPN users should not have issues connecting with the Desktop Central server because they are virtually in the same network. But when it comes to managing users who connect directly over the internet, you run the risk of exposing the Desktop Central server to the internet. So John, being the smart IT guy, is making use of the Secure Gateway Server component for that added level of security. The Secure Gateway Server encrypts agent connection and also restricts access to the web console over the internet, aside from obviously not exposing the Desktop Central server to the internet. So once again, welcome to the Desktop Central training. Let's look at the training schedule. So we are on week 4 of the training sequence, and this is season 19, which is remote control and tools. So this is one of the modules of our endpoint management and security suite. We have had a couple of other modules over the past weeks, and we are currently running the week 4 training. In case if you have missed any of our training schedules, you can always view them on the link that is shown at the bottom of the screen. So if you are interested in the upcoming trainings, you can also use the same link to register yourself. So let's look at the remote control module from a work from home perspective today. Let me quickly talk about the agenda. So we will have an overview of Desktop Central and how it helps you in a work from home setup. Then we will be looking at how to notify end users about an impending patch update using Desktop Central. And with regards to tools or remote control, which is what today's session is about, we will look at some scenarios, including how you can troubleshoot help desk tickets and how Desktop Central's remote control will be of help to you. I have also taken a couple of scenarios like troubleshooting system slowness and how a Desktop Central tool can be a great help for you in your daily activities. Then we will be having a look at the architecture behind how all of this works. And then we will discuss some of the frequently asked questions with respect to tools and remote control. In fact, even during the course of the training, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat using the chat window. I have an expert panel with me who are ready to answer all your questions. So what is Desktop Central? Desktop Central is an endpoint management solution that ensures all your endpoints are secure and enables the users to use them effectively for business. So Forrester defined UEM as follows: products that provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. In unified endpoint management, you can manage endpoints in a traditional IT management fashion, which includes patch management, application management, configuration deployment, asset management, remote control or tools, OS deployment, and remote control that I talked about earlier. Then you also have modern management. So modern management includes support for all the modern operating system like Windows 10 or Mac, and it supports features like geo-tracking, geofencing, managing Windows Store applications, profile distribution to enforce restrictions, and operating system reset and recovery. So one of the most popular modern operating system is Windows 10, and this is a classic example in which we can manage both the traditional and modern management. And Desktop Central can manage both the worlds, that is traditional and modern, from a single console. Now, these are the features that you can leverage when you are using Desktop Central as a unified endpoint management solution. We have patch management, which takes care of your operating system and third-party application patching. We have application management, asset management, configurations, and in fact, if you're following our training schedule, we will be talking about this in greater detail in our next sequence. You can manage other functions, including mobile device management for iOS, Android, Windows, and Chromebooks. Then we have modern management, which is for Windows and Mac machines. You can perform things like geo-tracking, complete or corporate wipe, put the device on kiosk mode, and you can also distribute store apps and manage profile distribution. And last, we have OS deployment, where you will be able to create a single master image and deploy it across multiple machines. Now, these are the features that are offered within the Desktop Central suite. Hence, with the Desktop Central Unified Endpoint Management, you will be able to manage desktops, laptops, mobile phones and tablets, servers, point-of-sale devices, and browsers. All this from a single console. Desktop Central is recognized for Best Unified Endpoint Management Tool of 2019 as reviewed by customers in the Gartner Peer Insight Customers' Choice Award. We are recognized for Unified Endpoint Management in the Magic Quadrant for the second consecutive year, and we are recognized for both traditional and modern management. So what are the components that you need to run this application? So there are essential as well as optional components. The Desktop Central server is the central component that you have to install first, and it provides the interface to the management console. The agent is an essential component, and this needs to be installed on the machines that you want to manage. There's another component that is called the notification server. This is an interesting component, and we will talk more about this once we get into the product. And when we look at the optional components, we have a distribution server, which serves as a repository for patches or software or configuration files that you have deployed to machines in specific remote offices. You can create unique replication policies for each location as per the bandwidth requirement. Then we have the secure gateway server. Now, this is useful if you are going to manage machines that are not part of the LAN or will be connecting over the internet. We also have the failover server. So in case if you want to have high availability, you can make use of this. This is separately licensed too. And finally, you can use a language pack to list the web content language. So Desktop Central supports 3 major operating systems for now, Linux. You can find the complete list of the support. So the application server runs on the Windows platform, but you can manage endpoints with Windows or Mac or Linux operating systems. In case if you have any questions, you can always reach out to support, and you can also refer to the email address shown on the bottom of the screen. So since Desktop Central works on a client-server architecture, This means that you need to have the agent We also have automatic agent installation. This is done directly from the web console. You can add multiple domains, select the specific computers, and you can then push out the agent to them. And finally, we also have scripts that you can use to install the agent, or you can also download the agent manually and execute the setup directly from the target machine. And it should automatically agent installation in greater detail in our upcoming training sessions. So if you subscribe to the upcoming over the internet, will be communicating via the secure gateway server, and machines that connect using VPN server using the internal IP address. The remote control will work on from a point, be able to use its tools effectively from home. So the have a or if you resolve day-to-day for probably installation of applications or to troubleshoot and resolve system-related issues. So in order to manage or remote management, I should say, you need a tool like Desktop Central, which will facilitate remote management. And of course, if you would like to enforce or maintain IT policies, something like a power management scheme or disk cleanup, or to set up a reboot cycle, if you have IT policies that have to be enforced on your endpoints, then a tool like Desktop Central comes in handy to ensure that the policies are enforced. And if you want to communicate with the end users as part of the help desk team, it is required to communicate with the user about the progress of a ticket, or if you need any help like a remote session, or to ask permission from the end user before hopping on a remote session, you will need to communicate with them by means of chat or video call. You can definitely use a tool like Desktop Central in order to take care of this. But this is why a solution like Desktop Central exists to take care of all your remote management needs. So all the scenarios are designed in such a way that we can go through each step of remote control to understand the different aspects, and it will give you a better idea about how you can better utilize this product. Patching machines is one of the widely used functions of Desktop Central, and in a remote or work from home situation, the patches will have to be. So on the first scenario that we have today, we will look at how Desktop Central helps with setting an expectation, notifying the end users about an impending patch update using announcements. So let's say you have a patching schedule to take place at every third Saturday of a month. When working from the office, the IT team have control over the network bandwidth, but in a work from home scenario, there would be varying bandwidth based on the user's internet connection. So you want to create an announcement to notify end users about this so they can save their work and continue once the machine has been patched and rebooted. So practically, if you want to create an announcement for the end user, you can do that. So let's dive into the product, see how this works. So this is the Desktop Central web console. And once I'm in here, this is the first screen that I'm welcomed in. So you have the various other modules like configurations, patch management, software deployment, inventory, OS deployment, mobile device manager, and tools that we'll be looking at today. So I go to tools and I go to announcements. So I've already created one for this to show this to you. So you provide an announcement title and the message. So I'm just stating the users that a patch cycle is going to take place on the third week Saturday, and they will have to save their work and continue after the patching is done and rebooted. So once you enter the message, you can then specify the start time and the end time. So it starts based on the agent replication interval. So from 9 a.m. and today, You can set the frequency. So this will be listed either multiple times or just once. So once the user closes it, it would go away if you use the only once option. And if you use the multiple times, you can set the frequency during which it would be shown multiple times during a day. You can also change it to minutes or hours based on your preference. And finally, you select the target. So that is either the remote office or the domain or a custom group for specific users. And you can save it to the view. So what we have at present is that the agent will be able to display an on-screen announcement to tell the users about a patch cycle. Agent was able to successfully display the message or if it failed. But it does not list a confirmation for the user. So we are working on offering something similar to this with the confirmation option, where you can get a feedback from the user, but it is currently a work in progress. So right now you can make an announcement with respect to patch cycle or any other issue practically. So the second scenario that we have for today is that we will be looking at when an end user, so in this case, Bob, raises a help desk request. So here we are using a help desk tool called Service Desk Plus. So this is ManageEngine's own ITSM solution. Bob has raised the help desk ticket that he needs to have an Adobe application installed. And also he needs the display adapter. So if you have tickets like this, I'm sure you will have day-to-day tickets like this, so that come into your help desk. So how would you go about resolving this? Because end users might not be able to reach the IT help desk directly over call. So in this case, Desktop Central gives the users an option to create a help desk request right from the agent tray icon. So let's go back to the web console to see how this works. We go to admin, and we go to help desk settings. So over here, you can configure your help desk email address, and you can enable help desk settings over here. And once you have saved this, the users will be able to create help desk ticket right from their agent tray icon. So using this option, they can directly reach the help desk screen. So now that we have had a look, so go to tools and remote control. So this is the computers tab. This lists all the computers with the agent installed, and you can initiate a remote control session right from here. So a green icon would mean that the agent is currently online and is able to communicate with the Desktop Central server. A red icon would mean that the agent is down or is shut down. So there are other tabs like history, so you can view a complete audit report of which user has been performing remote control actions from here. Then we have the settings tab. I'll be revisiting this in greater detail once I complete the session. And then we have screen recording. So you can enable or disable screen recording based on your preference. And if this option is enabled, you will be able to download the videos from the history tab. Then you have performance settings. So we talked about managing different remote offices and users connecting over the internet. So based on your specific bandwidth requirements, you can customize performance settings to ensure that you get the highest quality at the end. And finally, you have user confirmation. So if you are someone who's concerned about user privacy and security, you can enable the user confirmation option. And you also have an option to enable it permanently. So if you enable this option, you would only be able to, you will not be able to revert this in future. So in case if you need to do that, you will have to reach back to support. So let's go to the remote control session now. From computers tab, you click on the connect button next to the respective computer. And now you're prompted for a message. So I will just say test connection. And the session commences now. It may load for us a couple of seconds. Yes. Yep. So this is the remote control page. And once I'm in here, on the left side of the screen, I can either set the display settings, so I can view it in the full screen mode. One option that is missing here is dual monitor setup. So I have a single monitor setup. If you have multiple monitors, you will have an additional option in the left side pane. You can select the respective monitor from there. So we are helping a user with software installation. In case if the user does not have admin privileges, you can use a Control-Alt-Delete command and change user and log in using your admin. Then you have the option to blacken monitor. So let's say you are entering something sensitive in the user's environment. So you want to access a network share and you do not want the user to see the credentials. You can send a blacken monitor command. The screen gets blacked out and you would be able to continue normally. And you will have to revoke the command again, otherwise the user screen would remain black until you disconnect the session. Then you can disable input. So let's say the user is fidgety or silent, and you can continue using the remote session. And if you are using different keyboard layouts, let's say you are helping a customer from a different location or a different country, and they happen to be using a different keyboard layout, and you want the keystrokes to be registered using their input, you can use the use client keyboard option, and key inputs would be registered from their keyboard. Then you also have the view only mode. So in this mode, you will be communicating with the end user and they will be having control. So you would not have control over the session. You would be on a view only mode. And finally, in case if you run into any error, so in the process of installing an application, after successful installation, or if it errors out, you can take a screenshot for your audit purposes. Then there's the quick launch menu, and all of this is run using the system user account. So it is an equivalent to an admin account. So you can send a command prompt option. You can also open control panel and help troubleshoot the driver issue. Then you also have the option to open file manager from here. And one thing to note here is that when you send a reboot command, the machine reboots and the agent, once the agent comes up, it automatically connects back to the desktop central server. So as long as you leave the session up and running, so as long as you do not close the window, the agent will automatically connect back and the session will resume where you left off. Then there is file transfer. So I was talking about copying an installation. So you can use the file transfer option to copy a file from your specific path over to the target machine. And you can just so all three options are available over here, and I'll be discussing this in greater detail in later stage. So there's a separate module for just chat. I'll be covering that over there. And then there are hotkeys. So you can send an hotkey command directly from this menu itself. So this is how the interface looks like when you trigger a remote control session. Now coming back, so the viewer type. So there are two viewer types in Desktop Central. So the default one is HTML5, and that is the more recent version. Sorry about the delay. Yeah, that's a more recent version. And if you are someone of a legacy user, or if you prefer ActiveX, you can use that as well. So ActiveX involves downloading one additional component for the first time setup, and moving forward, you can connect using the same viewer. Now, once I've completed the remote session, I go to the history tab, and now you can see that my entry is logged over here. So this is logged in two places. So one under remote notify shadow they receive any notifications or prompts. You'll be connected straight away, and they will not be receiving notifications from your end. Enable quick launch from here. Hi guys, sorry about that. Looks like my connection, network connection dropped. I'm sorry about that. So this is one of the disadvantages of working from a remote setup. I do not notice that my network disconnected. Sorry about that. So I'll continue from where I left off. So I'll come back to the settings page. Please give me 1 minute. Yeah, thanks for saying it, man. Sorry about the delay. So yeah, coming back to the settings screen. So I guess you might have lost connection in the black and monitor section. So moving forward, the next option is the disable keyboard and mouse of the client computer. So this is similar to black and monitor. So once this option is enabled, the client's keyboard and mouse input would be disabled. So until you end or disconnect the remote session, they will not be able to send any inputs. Then there is logging the reason for remote connection. So you might remember that I entered a reason when I initiated my remote control session. I entered this connection. So in case we do not want to be prompted for that, you can disable this option and it should not be shown moving forward. Then there is the view only mode. So in this mode, you would only be able to view the end user's computer and only they would have control over the session. And the last option is hiding the remote cursor. So otherwise there will be two cursors and that will be confusing for the end user. So you can disable this to the end user. So the next option is screen recording. So you can enable screen recording from this page. So you can select the codec style, then you can set the frames per second and the color quality. So you can then set an automatic removal policy based on the specific storage limit. So you can specify 5 GB, and once 5 GB is reached, the oldest file gets removed. You can also encrypt the files. So in this case, you will only be able to access over the web console. So you would only be able to view it using the history tab and not directly from the file path itself. So the next setting is performance. So I talked about this earlier for multiple remote offices. So for each remote office, you can set the compression ratio and the color quality. So you can set it fast for the best performance and color quality as well. So you can set it to low in case you want a better performance. And finally, you have user confirmation. So if you are someone who's concerned about user privacy and security, you can enable this option and a prompt would be displayed to the end users. And over here, you can also configure an exclusion. So in case, let's say, around 10 or 15 servers are in a DMZ or in no man's land, so no users would be able to access them. So in this case, you can add the 10 machines over here, and only those 10 machines would not be receiving any confirmation prompts. So these are all the various options that you can use or utilize on the Tool Desktop Central's remote control section. So now let's go back to the presentation. You might be wondering, how did all of this work? So how did the remote control session establish and what goes on the back end? So this is a very simple design. The server holds the key here. There are two ports that need to be open, that is HTTPS 8443 and 8027. The moment the technician initiates a remote session, I was talking previously about a notification server being an interesting component. So this is the server that keeps track of the live agents, or this is what is responsible for immediate action. So we call it as an on-demand action. So whenever you trigger something from the server, it initiates on the target machine, and as the target machine connect with the server. So this notification server and the port 8027 are essential for all on-demand operations. So the moment the technician initiates the connection, the request first goes to the server, and from the server, it goes via port 8027, the notification server. A remote control session is then initiated using the port 8443. So if there are other technicians who want to join, they can view the same desktop or image frames right on the server. So this is how the remote control session is established and works. So there will always be a common question if it installs any client on the background, or if you have to download something in addition to initiate a remote session. The answer to that is no, nothing additional has to be performed because the agent is there and the agent will be able to initiate the remote connection without having a user to install a plugin or download anything in addition. So I can initiate it directly from the web console. So of course, one of the last settings, so going back to the web console, I told that I would be talking in detail about the chat section. So over here, you have the users and you can initiate a text chat or voice or video call. So this is also done over port 8443 as well. So you have to make sure that this port is open in UDP in order to chat or the file transfer option to work. So it is HTTPS for the remote connection and UDP for the chat options. The troubleshooting system slowness. So system maintenance is crucial in an IT environment, and even more so when moving to a work from home setup. So moving to a work from home setup initially would not be the hardest part. So once the users have settled in to work from a home setup, you will need to be patching the systems and help troubleshoot any issues that the users face. And one issue that gets widely reported is system slowness. So the third scenario that we will be looking at is going to be troubleshooting system slowness and what are the tools that Desktop Central provides you with in order to help you with system troubleshooting. So let's imagine a scenario that a user in John's environment has reported that their computer is unbearably sluggish. And what are the tools in Desktop Central that John can leverage in order to troubleshoot this specific issue? So we have an option called System Manager. So that is under Tools and System Manager, where you will be able to browse through each task and process in a machine. So I can open Task Manager for this machine now. Oops. So I can open Task Manager, and this is a real-time view of the respective machine. So troubleshooting system slowness, the first thing that I would want to check is what are the processes that are consuming the most CPU or memory? And I want to check if any malicious processes are running in the background. So you can go ahead and view it right from the web console without the need to initiate a remote control session. You can view and manage it right from this page. So you can easily terminate a process by clicking on the X button. And you can also control the startup processes. So if the user has reported that they experience slowness during system boot time, you can enable or disable the respective applications so that when the system starts, they are disabled based on your preference. So you can do that as well from here. So the next job for me would be to check the services that are present in the machine. So I go to the services tab and I view a real-time view of all the services that are running in this machine. I can also start the service or start or even disable and set the startup type to automatic or manual from this page. So my next stop would be the Windows Event Logs viewer. So one of the common things that you as a technician would want to do is view the event logs when there is a report of an issue or a crash. So you can go in here and filter based on a specific period of time or a specific application. So you can use the filter option. If you have the event source ID, you can specify the event ID over here, the application over here. So you can specify the application, event level is warning. So you can specify based on your specific criteria. So then comes File Manager. So you will be able to browse through the files similar to using Windows File Explorer in the end machine. You can access the different drives. So all three are in view. You can browse through the files and even create or delete files from this page. And then we have checking the disk space or disk cleanup. So that is also one of the options that we have offer. So when you're troubleshooting a system slowness issue, the next thing you want to do is do a disk cleanup. So you go to Tools, System Tools. So over here, you can create a new task. I've already created one, so I'll just modify and show this for you. So there are three tasks over here: check disk, disk cleanup, and disk defragmenter. So over a check disk, you can select the specific volume, and you can fix errors or even perform a quick check from here. So next would be disk cleanup. So for Windows 10 version 1703 and above, we have storage sense, that is Windows built-in option. We support both the newer versions and the older versions. So storage sense will take care of all the disk cleanup activities for you. You can select the settings and the duration, and you're set to go. For older versions of Windows 10 or older Windows machines like Vista or 7, you can configure disk cleanup utility from this page as well. So if you want to select specific files like log files or Windows installation files, you can just select only those files and you can then proceed to the next step. And last is the disk defragmenter. So you can select the respective drives again and set the operation type and priority and the defragment mode. So once this is done, you can then proceed to define the target. You can select and filter based on your specific requirements, and you can then proceed to configure the scheduler. So this gets created as a task entry within Windows scheduler in the target machines. So this page is very similar to that option. So you can set the trigger conditions. So you can set the frequency, the start time and the end time, and also advanced settings based on your requirements. You can then click on finish and it should be saved. So this is with respect to troubleshooting system slowness from the system tools standpoint. Now let's go back to system manager. So the next step that I would want to check is registry entries. So you can do that as well directly from here. You click on registry, and this would list the registry editor from the machine real time. So you can view the files over here, and you can also modify them. Or if you want to be extra cautious about this, you can export the registry files. So this gets stored in the desktop central server, and you can then make changes. So in case if something goes wrong, you can then revert to the old settings using the backup. Then there's device manager. So I talked about earlier about system troubleshooting. So in case you do not want to get on a remote control session, but want to do it remotely, silently, you can do it from this page. So this is a similar view to that of the end user's device manager screen, and you can manage the devices from here. Then you have the shares option. So at this point, I'm not talking about troubleshooting system slowness. I'm covering the other aspects that are available within System Manager that might be useful for you. So shares lists all the admin shares or the shared paths in a respective machine, and it also shows the current sessions and the open files. So next up is printers. So over here, printers lists just the view. So you would only be able to view the printers in a machine. As of now, this is a limitation. So if you want to add a printer or remove a printer, you can use the configuration section. So you can go to configurations, and over there you can create a new configuration to add a printer, either a shared network printer or an IP printer. So this should be discussed in detail in the upcoming session. So please make sure that you're signed up for our schedule. And the next option is groups. So this is user groups. So let's say you want to give an user temporary admin privileges so that they can perform a software installation or for any other purpose that you want to give. So you can add a member over here. So once, let's say they have done the installation and you want to remove them, you can click on the X button and they will automatically be removed back from the group. So you do not have to go on a remote session to do this for them. You can do it remotely from the web console itself. And then there is the software tab. So this lists all the software that is present in the respective machine. So you can also uninstall this right from here. The one thing to note over here is that this does not have the same level of flexibility that is offered in the software deployment section. So if you want to customize the deployment or add pre or post deployment activities, software deployment would be the way to go. And finally, you have the users tab. So over here, it lists all the user accounts that are present in this specific machine. Sorry about the delay. Yeah. Now let's go back to the presentation. So for troubleshooting system slowness, we have to recap. You can view the task manager and check the system processes that are running, or use the services tab to view the services in the machine. So number 2 would be viewing the event log viewers. So you can analyze them for any errors that are shown there, or if there are frequent application crashes. Then you can use remote command prompt or check disk space. You can then configure check disk or disk cleanup to make sure that this is running at a specified interval. So yeah, I discussed both at the same point. And then there's remote command prompt. So that is one option that I left behind. I went into registry, but I forgot. So let's go back there. So you go to tools and command prompt. So by default, this is logged in using the system admin account. So as I discussed earlier, this is an equivalent to the administrator account. So this is elevated by default. But if you want to run as a different user, you can select this from here. So this lists all the other user accounts that are present in the respective machine. So let's continue with the presentation now. So the next scenario is enabling IT policies to monitor endpoint productivity in a work from home setup. So imagine John's organization has tasked him with generating daily reports that have information like user log on or log off time, so power management reports to check the system uptime, etc. So all of this can be done with the help of the productivity reports. So you can generate user logon reports to monitor logged on users for computers. You can also meter software applications usage. So you can measure the amount of time spent by the end user when they use a specific application. So let's go into the web console to have a look at how this is done. So you go into reports and user logon reports. So over here, you can view the user logon history. Oops. This is the best report. So you can use the detailed view. So this shows each login and log off time for the respective user account. So it also has the summary view. So over here, you'll have to click on the user account to check the activity. So now the next thing is power management report. So you go to the power management report and system uptime report over here. Your detailed uptime report over here, when the machine is booted up and when it is shut down on a day-to-day basis. You can also filter based on specific criteria. So if you want to specific date range or a time, you can do that from here as well. Then we have software metering. So this is done under the inventory section. So you go to inventory and software metering. You can create new rules from here. I will modify my existing rule. So you specify the rule name and the file name. So the file name is what is used for measuring the usage of the application. So when the user uses chrome.exe, the time is measured from the time it is opened and when it is closed. So they will have to use the X button at the top to close it. Shutting down or force closing it would not create an entry with the agent. So they have to open the application and close it. And the time taken between this is taken as the duration of the measurement. So you can view this as a report under the software metering summary over here. So let's go back to the presentation now. So you can also use the link that is shown at the bottom of the screen for a more detailed approach on how this can be done, or you can also contact support in case if you have any further help with this. So now that we have seen all the scenarios that we have for the day, you might be wondering how does Desktop Central do this and what is the architecture behind how Desktop Central works. So as we talked earlier, this works on a client-server architecture, and this diagram paints a pretty good picture of how Desktop Central can be set up. So when it comes to the wide area network, you can manage different remote locations from one central office. So this is the Desktop Central server, and this is the head office. You're managing endpoints. You're having the Active Directory domain and the web console. So this is the various remote office. So one remote office is using the distribution server, and one is using direct communication. So both of this is routed via the secure gateway server. If the user uses a VPN, then the connection is tunneled in and it connects directly with the Desktop Central server using the internal IP address. Now you can also see that there are a bunch of roaming users, and all of these users also connect via the secure gateway server. Now the Desktop Central server gets the patch files or the software application files from the repository and from the respective vendor websites. If you have any questions with respect to this, you can feel free to ask in the chat section. I have one of my experts personnel with me to help you with this. So this has been an updated image. So Desktop Central has gone through a lot of changes in the recent months. So this is a pretty accurate picture of what Desktop Central architecture looks like at present. So now that we have looked at managing roaming users and WAN agents, you might have a question if Desktop Central is suitable for a closed network patching. So yes, Desktop Central does have functionality, albeit limited, but it does have functionality for closed network as well. So if you want to send out patches or if you want to perform any task in a closed network, Desktop Central does support this. So you can refer to the link that is shown at the bottom of the screen in order to check for the instructions on how to set this up for a closed network. We also have Desktop Central hosted in Azure and AWS Marketplace. Now you can also download the on-premise setup and host it in your own cloud environment if you're fine with that as well. So it should work perfectly fine. But we also have our official listings in Azure and AWS Marketplace. Also, talking about cloud, we have just recently launched the Desktop Central Cloud Edition. It is in early access at present, and it also has the Unified Endpoint Management Edition. So you can sign up using the link that is shown over here. So that is desktopcentral.manageengine.com. That should be fine for you. Now coming back to the architecture, we talked about an agent client server architecture, and with respect to communication, it is always the agent that is pulls the configuration files from the Desktop Central server. So this takes place on a 90-minute refresh interval. So irrespective of whether you manage 90 machines or 900 machines or even 9,000 machines for that matter, the time is split evenly among all of the agents so that all the agent is able to communicate with the Desktop Central server at least once every 90 minutes. Give me 1 second, I'll just drink a cup of water, sorry. The server has the intelligence to assign a time for each client to talk to the server. So this is to avoid network congestion or any bandwidth related issues. So the 90-minute refresh policy is designed in such a way that the load to the server is split evenly. Now the ports used by Desktop Central. So Desktop Central runs primarily on 2 ports, port 8383 or 8020 if you're using HTTP. So 8383 for secure connection and 8027. All agents talk to the server using this 8383 port. And 8027 is the notification server port, which we discussed in detail in the earlier section. So this is used by the notification server. Now this port is responsible for all on-demand activities like initiating a patch scan or a configuration or any software application or remote control for the matter as well. So apart from these 2 ports, there are other optional ports that you need to open. So the important ports are listed on this screen. You can keep the respective ports open as per your specific requirements. So there are a few other ports as well. You can view them using the link shown towards the bottom of the page. This will give you a better idea about the ports that are required. So now let's get into the scenarios and solutions that I have prepared for the day. How do I measure the time spent by technicians for handling tickets related to desktops? So this is a question that usually comes up in case if we have service desk plus. You can always go to the specific ticket and we will post the details about how much time a specific user was using it. Again, how much time was spent over the remote session, the logs related to that should be available, and the duration spent on each session. So those things will be available here. So I will also go to the console and show this to you. So you can go to tools, remote control, and history over here. So this would list the duration spent by each technician for each specific session. Now we would like to monitor the activities of students in our school without their knowledge. Is this possible? Yes, this is possible, and we call this as the stealth mode. So you can go into remote control settings and you can uncheck the option to notify end users about remote connection. And you can also enable view only mode if you are fine with that. And you'll be able to shadow the users based on your remote connection session. We are a healthcare company and we need to be HIPAA compliant, for instance. So Desktop Central does fall under HIPAA compliant. So we are HIPAA compliant. And if you are using Desktop Central tool, you are HIPAA compliant ready. So let's say that installing and configuring IIS on a remote machine is complex. So I want to document the process and use it as a training material for newcomers. So is this possible? Yes, it might be a complex process setting up a web server. So you can enable screen recording for this purpose over here. So once screen recording is enabled, you can do a trial run of setting things up, and the video should be listed in the history tab. So you can then use the video for newcomers so that they can train on it. I find my remote sessions are slow when I'm in a different country or when connecting to roaming users. So how would I go about fixing this? So the first thing is to define the performance. Under the performance tab, define the compression ratio. So I go to performance, and you can set the compression ratio over here. So you can set it to fast, and the color quality can be set to low. So once you save this, you should notice a performance improvement. So one of the users suspects an unauthorized remote access to his machine and has raised it to the IT manager. Is there a way to audit the remote connections to his machine? So yes, like I touched upon earlier, this can be viewed in two places. So one would be under the history tab, tools, remote control, and history. So this lists all the remote control sessions, and this is also logged under admin and action log viewer. So you can set it to remote control over here. And this lists a complete history of remote control sessions. So I have a few servers hosted in Nomad environment, and our company policy demands to get users approval before remote sessions. How do I handle this? Yes, this can be achieved. So you can enable user confirmation and also exclude the devices at the same time. So let's go back to the web console. You go to tools, remote control, and user confirmation. So you can enable user confirmation over here. This is a global setting, and you can add the machines from the Nomad environment over here to the exclusion list. So these machines would not be receiving a confirmation prompt, and the remote connection would go in straight away. So that is all for the scenarios that we have to discuss for today. And now we will be having a look at some of the frequently asked questions. So I'm running the Desktop Central app on my mobile. Can I initiate the remote control via the mobile app? Yes, the Desktop Central comes with a mobile application that you can use. So once you install the mobile application, you can install it from here. In fact, I'll show you. You can go to admin, and you can scan the QR code to download the app. So it is available in Google Play Store and the iOS App Store. So once you have downloaded it, you have to configure the app using the settings provided over here. And you have to make sure that it is either connected to the corporate network or the server is reachable over the internet. So only when there is reachability, the app would be able to work. So yes, this is supported. And once you are able to configure the app and you get in, you can then initiate remote control, choose the machines, and you will be able to connect to it. So this is how the page would look. So it looks pretty similar to what the web console looks like in a computer. So this is a mobile view. So you can select the respective machine. Once you connect, you have hand gestures over there. So the interface is pretty similar to that when you use the computer. So you can initiate remote control over here. And in fact, you can also initiate or schedule shutdown cycles from here as well. So you can go to System Manager and Remote Shutdown, and you can set up the tasks right from this page from the mobile app. So does screen recording need to be turned on before establishing remote control session, or can it be turned on during the session? Screen recording will take place only when it's enabled. So if you are already engaged in a remote session, you will have to end the session, enable the screen recording, and then reconnect to a session. Only then it will be recorded. So to allow multiple technicians to work on a same machine, does that require additional licenses? No, this does not cost any additional licenses, but you need to make sure that you currently have adequate licenses to have multiple users. So Desktop Central has an user-based licensing policy. So if you have multiple user accounts, you can definitely use this. So there is no additional cost added to this. Will remote control automatically reconnect to a session after the reboot? Yes, so as long as you do not end the session, and do not close the browser window. Once the agent is back up after the reboot, the agent would automatically connect to the session using the session ID and the session would resume. A remote control screen shows port 8443 is blocked, and how would I resolve? So this would either mean that a firewall block is in your network in place, or you can also make sure that you use a different port over here. So you can go to tools and you can go to port settings over here. Oops. And you can then change the port over here. So once you change this, the agent will be using the new port moving forward. So you can provide any number over here. So there is no recommended number. Any port number that is not in use in your network would be fine. Is it possible to take remote control of a roaming user? Yes, this is definitely possible, but you need to make sure that the desktop central server is either reachable over the internet using a secure gateway server or a public IP or FQDN, or the user has to be connecting using a VPN and connecting directly with the server. And the port 8443 also has to be open. So you need to make sure of that too. Does the wake on LAN feature need open ports in routers in order to send the wake up commands to remote client computers? The wake on LAN feature relies on magic packets. So yes, the default magic packets should be enabled in your network, and the respective ports also happen to be open in your network. I want remote connections to automatically disconnect if the technician has been idle for over 10 minutes. How would I do this? So you go to tools and remote control settings over here. You can set the idle session timings. So you can set it to 10 minutes and you can set it to disconnect the remote session. Our company wants to employ stringent privacy policies that limit technicians or admin for accessing user files and folders. How do I achieve that? So this may be a very real concern, especially for European users. So you can restrict the access for all users from this page. You can go to admin and you can go to system manager settings over here. So you can disable this for all users, and you can also permanently disable this for all users. So these are the options that you have. So you can do this as per your preference. So that's it from my side for the training today. And thank you very much once again for joining the training, and I hope it was informative. Please do rate us on a scale of 5, with 5 being the maximum. So we would love to hear back from you. And with respect to remote control, so we have a specific product called Remote Access Plus that caters specifically with respect to remote control. So it is desktop central with the tools alone minus everything else. So no patch management, no software deployment, just tools and remote control. So you can use this link to learn more about Desktop Central or Remote Access Plus. And thank you guys once again from my side. So please spread a word so you can make a trend if you want to, if you like a product. So these are tough times actually. So, and hope you guys all stay safe. And the next training schedule is on screen, so you can connect next week, same time. And thanks and have a wonderful day. Bye guys.